The Grand Assembly Hall was the biggest building Park Do-hwan had ever seen. It stretched for 3 kilometers, made entirely of shining crystal that caught the light of distant stars. Inside, thousands of aliens from 47 different civilizations had gathered. There were giant insect warriors in golden armor. There were floating beings wrapped in glowing robes. There were creatures with scales that changed colors like living rainbows dot. And then, there was Do-hwan, a human, standing alone in a simple black suit. He was not supposed to be here. Do-hwan was just a translator. He spent his days reading alien languages and helping diplomats understand each other. He had never been to a galactic summit before. But 3 days ago, Earth's real ambassador had gotten very sick. Someone needed to go in his place. Someone who spoke many languages. Someone who could at least pretend to belong. That someone was Park Do-hwan, a 32-year-old man from Bizen, who still sent money home to his mother every month. The whispers started the moment he walked in. Is that a human? A giant insect creature laughed. His mouth parts clicked together in amusement. I thought they sent warriors to these meetings. Look at him, another alien said. No armor. No weapons. No modifications. Just soft skin and weak bones. Do-hwan heard every word. His translation implant worked both ways. He understood all 47 languages being spoken in this room. And right now, most of them were making fun of him. He kept his face calm. He had learned long ago that humans were the galaxy's favorite joke. They had only been traveling in space for 200 years. They had no special powers. No natural weapons. No psychic abilities. They were small and fragile and died so quickly compared to other species. But they were stubborn. Very, very stubborn. The summit had been called for one important reason. Princess Yura of the Ethon sovereignty had come of age. She was the daughter of the most powerful emperor in 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. By ancient tradition, she would choose a husband from among the noble houses of space. Whoever she picked would gain enormous political power. Every empire had sent their best. Candidates the Thoraxians sent General Vorn, a 7-foot-tall insect warrior who had conquered 30 planets. His body was covered in natural armor, and his 4 arms each carried a different weapon. The Celestins sent High Seer Mithros, a being of pure energy who could read minds and see the future. His body glowed with soft white light, and his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. The Dralith sent Prince Kale, a reptilian noble whose family controlled the largest trade network in known space. His scales were decorated with precious gems, and his smile showed 3 rows of perfect teeth. And Earth sent a translator who had never been in a fight in his entire life. Do-hwan found a quiet corner near the big windows. Outside, he could see hundreds of starships floating past like diamonds scattered across black velvet. It was beautiful. He pulled out a small notebook and began to draw the ships. Real paper and pencil, not a digital tablet. Aliens who walked past gave him strange looks. Drawing helped him stay calm. He had done it since he was a child, sitting in his mother's tiny apartment, sketching pictures of the stars he dreamed of visiting. You draw. The voice was soft and curious. Do-hwan turned and froze. A young woman stood beside him. Her skin was pale blue and seemed to glow from within. 3 delicate horns curved back from her forehead like a crown. Her eyes were pools of liquid gold, and they were looking directly at him. Princess Yura. Do-hwan's heart stopped. He tried to bow, nearly dropped his notebook, and almost fell over. Your Highness, I am so sorry. I did not see you. I should have. You did not notice me because you were doing something peaceful. She tilted her head and studied him like he was an interesting puzzle. That is rare here. Everyone else is so busy showing off. She pointed at the crowd behind them. General Vorn was demonstrating fighting moves, each swing of his weapons creating deadly sounds. High Seer Mithros was making objects float in the air. Prince Kale was telling a group of admirers about his family's wealth and power. "May I see your drawings?" Yer asked. Dawan hesitated. Then he handed over the notebook. She turned the pages slowly. There were sketches of alien buildings, portraits of different species, detailed drawings of starships. She spent a long time looking at each one. "You see beauty in things others ignore," she said quietly. "The curve of a ship, the pattern of scales, the way light falls through glass." She looked up at him. "What is your name?" "Park Do-wan, Your Highness. I am just a translator. I am not actually a suitor. I know." "I know." A small smile appeared on her lips. "That is why I wanted to talk to you." Before Do-wan could respond, a heavy hand landed on his shoulder. General Vaughn stood behind him, his insect face twisted into what looked like disgust. "Princess, surely you did not waste your time with this creature. Come, let me show you the battle honors of my house." Yura's golden eyes went cold. "I was in the middle of a conversation, General? With a human?" Vaughn laughed. It was an ugly sound. "What could he possibly offer you? His species can barely breathe their own air without help. They have no gifts, no powers, no history worth remembering." The whole hall had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now. Do-wan felt the familiar weight of shame pressing down on him. The same shame he had carried since humanity first went into space and discovered they were the weakest species among the stars. But then Yura spoke again. "General Vaughn, how many languages do you speak?" The big insect blinked his compound eyes. "I speak Thraxian, of course, and Standard Galactic Trade Tongue. 2 languages. Yura turned to Do-wan. "How many languages do you speak, translator?" Do-wan swallowed hard. 47 fluently, Your Highness. Another 30 well enough to communicate." The silence in the hall became complete. 47 languages, Yura repeated, letting the number hang in the air. Without telepathy, without brain modifications, without any special ability except the one his species calls persistence. She handed his notebook back. Her fingers touched his for just a moment. "I find that very impressive, General. Do you not agree?" She walked away before anyone could answer. Do-wan stood frozen in place. The general stormed off, his armor clicking angrily. The crowd slowly returned to their conversations. But now people were looking at Do-wan differently, not with amusement. Anymore, with something that looked almost like worry. That night, Do-wan sat in his small guest room and stared at his notebook. On the last page, there was a new drawing he did not remember making. A quick sketch of a woman with horns and golden eyes. He had been a translator his whole life. He understood languages better than anyone. But for the first time, he had found something he could not translate. The feeling in his chest when Princess Yura had smiled at him. Outside his window, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, Earth was spinning around its small yellow sun. His mother was probably asleep right now, tired from another long day of work. She had sacrificed everything so he could study, so he could learn, so he could reach for impossible dreams. And now here he was, at a galactic summit, being noticed by a princess. Do-wan laughed softly to himself. It was ridiculous. He was nobody, a translator from a weak species that the whole galaxy mocked. But his mother had taught him something important. Back when they had nothing but each other, and hope. Dreams did not care if you deserved them. Dreams only cared if you were brave enough to chase them. The days after the first meeting were filled with tradition and show. Each suitor was given private time with Princess Yura. They were supposed to prove their worth, to show why they would make the best husband for the most important woman in the galaxy. General Vaughn presented her with the skull of a king he had killed in battle. The skull was covered in gold and jewels, and Vaughn spoke for an hour about the war where he had taken it. He described every battle, every death, every moment of glory. High Seer Mithras showed her visions of the future. He used his psychic powers to paint pictures in the air, showing possible timelines where their children would rule over countless stars. His voice echoed with cosmic power as he promised her knowledge beyond understanding. Prince Kao brought data tablets filled with numbers. He showed her trade agreements that would make the Ethon sovereignty rich beyond measure. He promised economic power that would last for 10,000 years. Park Do-won had nothing to offer. He was not even officially a suitor. He was just a translator who had been sent by accident. He had no gifts to give, no power to share, no future to promise. Yet somehow, Princess Yura kept finding him. She appeared in the library one afternoon while he was reading about Ethon history. She sat down across from him and asked questions about human books. What stories did his people tell? What did they believe in? What made them laugh and cry? Do-hwan answered as best he could. He told her about old Korean folktales his mother used to share. Stories about clever animals and kind farmers and magic that rewarded good hearts. Yura listened with her golden eyes wide, like a child hearing something wonderful for the first time. The next day, she found him in the gardens. The plants here were strange and beautiful, flowers that sang and trees that moved their branches like arms. They walked together along the stone paths, and Yura asked about Earth's seasons. Your planet has weather? She asked with surprise. Storms and rain and snow? Yes, and we mark each change with celebrations. Spring festivals when flowers bloom. Summer gatherings on beaches. Autumn harvests when we give thanks. Winter holidays when families come together. That sounds chaotic. It is, Do-hwan smiled. We love it. She found him again on the observation deck that night. The huge windows showed 1,000,000 stars stretching into forever. They talked for hours about nothing important. And somehow those conversations felt more real than anything else at the summit. Why do you keep finding me? Do-hwan finally asked. Your Highness, I am not competing with the others. I have no armies, no psychic powers, no wealth. Yura was quiet for a long moment. She stared out at the stars like they held answers. Do you know what it feels like to be valuable? She asked. To have your worth measured in treaties and territory and the strength of your blood? No. It means everyone who comes to you wants something. Power, influence, access to your father. She turned to look at him. But you have nothing to gain from me. You talk to me like I am just a person. You are a person. To you, maybe. Her smile was sad. To everyone else, I am an asset. A prize to be won. After that night, they met in secret. Do-hwan taught her to fold paper cranes. It was an old human art that his mother had taught him. Yura was clumsy at first, her elegant fingers struggling with the tiny folds. But she kept trying until she made one perfect crane. She laughed with pure joy, and Do-hwan thought it was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. She taught him the Ethon way of meditation. Her people could connect with starlight itself, drawing peace from the distant suns. Do-hwan could not feel what she felt, but sitting beside her in the darkness, breathing slowly, he found his own kind of calm. He told her about growing up poor in Bazan, about a mother who worked 3 jobs so he could study, about nights when they had no food, but she still told him stories and promised that things would get better. About dreams of seeing the stars that had seemed impossible until they suddenly were not. She told him about growing up royal, about a father who saw her as a political tool, about tutors who taught her to hide her feelings and advisors who planned her life without asking her opinion, about the weight of a crown she had never wanted to wear. My people live for 300 years, Yura said one night. We are taught to be careful with our hearts. To love only when it benefits our house. That sounds lonely. It is. She leaned against his shoulder. You humans live such short lives. Maybe that is why you love so strongly. Meanwhile, the other suitors had noticed how much time Yura spent with the human. Their mockery turned into something darker. General Vaughn found Do-hwan alone in a hallway one evening. The huge insect blocked the path completely. His forearms crossed over his armored chest. "I could kill you right now," Vorn said. "Crush you like the bug you are." "You could," Dohan agreed. His voice was calm, even though his heart was racing. "But you will not." "Why not?" "Because the princess would know. And whatever small chance you have with her would die with me." Vorn's face twisted with rage, but he stepped aside. Aesir Mithras tried a different approach. He invaded Dohan's dreams. Every night became a nightmare, filled with images of failure and shame. Yira laughing at him. Earth burning while the galaxy cheered. His mother crying because he was not good enough. Dohan woke each morning exhausted, but not broken. "How?" Mithras demanded when they met in the halls. "My visions should have destroyed your will to live." "I have lived with nightmares my whole life," Dohan said simply. "Your kind fears what might happen. My kind fears what has already happened. We are built to carry pain and keep walking." Prince Kale tried money. He offered Dohan a fortune to leave the summit. Wealth beyond imagination. A planet of his own. Anything he wanted. Dohan laughed. "You still do not understand. I am not a suitor. I have nothing to withdraw from. I am just a man who made a friend. A friend." Kale's perfect face twisted with disgust. "You think she sees you as anything but a toy? Something interesting to play with before throwing away?" The words hurt more than Dohan wanted to admit. But that night, when he met Yura on the observation deck, he asked her directly, "Am I just a toy to you?" Yura did not answer right away. Instead, she took his hand and placed it over her heart. Beneath his palm, he felt something unexpected. Not a steady alien heartbeat, a flutter, nervousness, fear. "My people can share feelings through touch," she whispered. "Feel what I feel, Dohan. Feel the truth." And he did that. It was not curiosity. It was not amusement, that it was hope. Desperate, scared hope. The same hope he had carried his whole life while reaching for impossible things. "Oh," he breathed. "Oh," she agreed, and she pulled him close. In that moment, standing on an observation deck 1,000,000 miles from Earth, holding a princess who should have been completely beyond his reach, Park Do-won understood something important. The galaxy could mock humans all it wanted, but hearts did not care about species or power or what made sense. Hearts only cared about connection. And somehow, impossibly, two hearts from completely different worlds had found each other in the vast darkness of space. The selection ceremony was only 3 days away. Soon, Princess Yura would stand before the entire galaxy and choose her husband. Political experts had already made their predictions. Most thought she would pick General Vorn. The Thraxian military alliance would be very valuable. Some thought she might choose High Seer Mithras for his psychic powers. A few believed Prince Kale's wealth would win. Nobody even mentioned the human. There was no point. He was not a real choice. Then the Emperor summoned Park Do-won to the throne room. Emperor Zarin was ancient, over 700 years old. His blue skin had faded to pale silver, and the horns on his head had grown long and curved like a crown of bone. He sat on a throne made of living crystal that pulsed with captured starlight. When Do-won entered, the Emperor's golden eyes fixed on him like weapons. "You are the human my daughter has been seeing." It was not a question. Do-won bowed low. "Yes, your majesty. Stand. Look at me." Do-won obeyed. The Emperor studied him for a long moment. "I have ruled for 400 years, Zarin said. I have watched empires rise and fall. I have seen species evolve and go extinct. I have witnessed stars being born and dying. In all that time, I have learned one truth. Power is the only thing that lasts. With respect, your majesty, I believe love lasts longer." The Emperor laughed. It was a dry, cold sound. "Love, a human weakness. Your species loves easily and often, and it destroys you every time. Perhaps. But it also saves us. Saves you from what? Your own wars? Your dying planet? Your position as the weakest race in space? The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. My daughter has a duty. She will marry for the good of the sovereignty, not for some fleeting feeling you call love. That is her choice to make, Your Majesty, not yours. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Guards shifted nervously. Even the living crystal grew dim. You dare speak to me this way? I dare nothing. Dohan kept his voice steady, though his heart was pounding. I am nothing. I have no power, no wealth, no army. I cannot threaten you in any way. All I can do is speak truth. And the truth is that your daughter is more than a bargaining chip. She is a person with her own heart and mind. If you force her to marry someone she does not want, you will lose her. Maybe not today. Maybe not for a century. But the anger will grow until it poisons everything. Silence filled the throne room dot, then the Emperor smiled. It was not a friendly smile. You have courage, human. Foolish courage, but courage. He waved his hand, and a glowing display appeared in the air between them. Very well. I will give you a chance. The display showed what looked like a tournament bracket. The right of ascension. An ancient tradition. Any being can challenge for the right to court a member of the royal house. If you complete 3 trials, I will accept you as a real suitor. If you fail, the Emperor's smile widened. The trials are not designed for people to survive failure. And if I refuse, then I will have you killed for the crime of touching royal blood without permission. Your choice. There was no choice. There had never been a choice. I accept. The rite of ascension had not been used in over 2,000 years. The last person who tried it was a Thraxian prince with an army behind him and special modifications that made him almost impossible to kill. He had died in the second trial. Park. Dohan stood in the preparation chamber, looking at his reflection in the metal walls. He was just a translator. He had never fought anyone. He had no powers, no weapons, no training. Through a window, he could see the other suitors watching. General Vorn was laughing. The human is actually going through with it. He will die for our entertainment. A fitting end for such pride. Mithras agreed. Only Prince Kale was quiet, watching Dohan with an expression that was hard to read. The first trial was called the Labyrinth of Echoes. It was a maze that changed constantly, filled with illusions designed to drive people insane. Psychic defenses were needed to survive. Dohan had no psychic defenses, but he had something else. When the maze walls closed around him, whispers began. Voices from his past, twisted and made louder. His mother crying over bills she could not pay. Classmates laughing at his accent when he first studied abroad. Rejection letters from universities. The galaxy mocking humanity for being weak. The voices wanted him to give up, to fall down and surrender. Instead, Dohan pulled out his notebook and started to draw. He sketched the maze walls as they shifted. He found patterns in the chaos. He talked back to the voices, not fighting them, but accepting them. Yes, we were poor. My mother worked until she collapsed for me. That is not shame. That is love. Yes, I was mocked. I kept studying anyway. That is not weakness. That is strength. Yes, humanity is young and weak. We are still here. That is not a joke. That is a miracle. The labyrinth was built to break minds with despair. But it could not break a mind that had already made peace with its pain. Dohan walked out 7 hours later, tired but whole. His notebook was filled with maps of the maze. The second trial was called the Crucible of Flame. It tested physical endurance to the absolute limit. The person inside would face increasing heat, pressure, and pain until they either surrendered or died. General Vorn watched with hungry eyes. No human can survive this. Their bodies are too fragile. Do-won entered the chamber. The heat began to rise. He thought of his mother, working 16-hour days in a factory where the temperature was dangerously high. She had done it for years. She had never complained. The pressure increased. He thought of the first human astronauts, strapped into tiny metal capsules and thrown into space. They knew they might die. They went anyway. The pain became overwhelming. He thought of every human who had ever been told they were not enough. Not strong enough. Not smart enough. Not evolved enough. And how they had proven everyone wrong by simply refusing to quit. "We are not built to last," Do-won whispered through cracked lips. "We are built to endure." When the trial ended, Do-won could barely stand. His skin was burned. His lungs hurt. Every part of his body screamed in pain. But he had not surrendered. The watching suitors were silent. The third trial was the most dangerous. It was called the trial of sacrifice. The person had to give up something precious, something fundamental to who they were. Do-won stood before a council of ancient Ethon elders. They were being so old, they seemed to be made of starlight. "Human," the eldest spoke, "what will you sacrifice for the princess?" Do-won had thought about this moment for hours. He knew what they expected. Offers of power or wealth or years of life. But humans did not think like other species. "My pride," he said. The elders looked confused. "Explain." Every person who has faced this trial offered something outside themselves. Power, money, status. But pride is inside. It is the story we tell ourselves about who we are. Do-won took a shaky breath. "I will give up the story that I am not enough. The story that humanity is not enough. The story that I need to prove myself to deserve love." "You would sacrifice your self-image?" "I would sacrifice the lie that my self-image matters. The princess does not need me to be worthy. She needs me to be present, honest, brave enough to love her without armor or pretense." He looked into the elder's golden eyes. "That is all I can offer. And I think that is all she wants." The silence stretched on. Then the eldest elder smiled. A real warm smile. "In 3,000 years, no one has understood the true purpose of this trial. It is not about what you give up. It is about understanding that sacrifice made from love is not really sacrifice at all." The elder raised a hand. "You have passed, human. You have earned the right to stand as a real suitor." Behind the viewing window, the other suitors stared in disbelief. The human had done the impossible, and the selection ceremony was only 2 days away. The selection ceremony took place under the 7 moons of the Ethon. Homeworld. The grand amphitheater was carved from a single mountain of living crystal. It was so large that clouds floated through its upper levels. Representatives from every known civilization filled the seats. Millions of beings had come to watch history being made. At the center of the amphitheater, a raised platform held the 3 remaining suitors. General Vaughn stood in his battle armor, weapons polished until they glowed. High Seer Mithras floated above the ground, his energy form pulsing with power. And Park Do-won stood between them in a simple black suit. The crowd's reaction told everything. Cheers for Vaughn. Respectful silence for Mithras. And for Do-won, whispers of confusion. Is that really a human? He survived the rite of ascension? This must be a mistake. Emperor Zahn sat on a floating throne above the platform. His silver face showed no emotion. Whatever he thought about the human who had defied him and won, he kept it hidden. Then Princess Yura arrived. She descended from the sky in a vessel made of pure light. Her silver robes flowed around her like liquid starlight. When she stepped onto the platform, the entire amphitheater went silent. "People of the Ethon sovereignty," she began. Her voice carried to every corner of the vast space. "Honored guests from across the galaxy, I stand before you at the most important moment of my life. The moment where I choose not just a husband, but a future." She walked slowly past the suitors, her golden eyes studying each one. General Vorn. She stopped in front of the massive insect warrior. You offer me strength, the might of the Thoraxian armies, the security of knowing my enemies would fear to attack me. Vorn straightened proudly, his armor clicking. But strength without wisdom is cruelty. I have seen how you treat those weaker than yourself. Your mockery, your contempt, your cruelty to those who cannot fight back. Her voice hardened. You would make the sovereignty feared, General, but you would not make it loved. Vorn's face twisted with shock. Whispers rippled through the crowd. YIRA moved to the next suitor. I, Seer Mithros. You offer me power, the ability to see through time, to know my enemies' thoughts before they think them, to bend reality to my will. Mithros bowed his glowing head gracefully. But power without kindness is corruption. I have seen how you use your gifts. Invading dreams, manipulating fears, breaking minds because it is convenient. Her golden eyes were cold. You would make the sovereignty powerful, Seer, but you would make it empty. More whispers. Louder now. Mithras's calm expression flickered with anger. You returned to the last figure on the platform. Bardowan, you offer me nothing. The amphitheater went completely silent. No armies, no psychic powers, no vast wealth or ancient bloodlines. You are human, a species this galaxy has spent centuries calling worthless. She paused, and yet she stepped closer to him. You learned 47 languages because you believed understanding was more valuable than conquest. You survived trials designed to break the greatest warriors because you refused to see suffering as something to avoid. You challenged an emperor to his face because you believed love was worth dying for. Her voice softened. It carried a weight that silenced even the whispers. You looked at me, not at my title, not at my power, not at what I could give you. You saw a person. Just a person lonely and tired and hoping for something real. Yira reached out and took his hand. The galaxy asks what you can offer me. But they asked the wrong question. She turned to face the crowd, her golden eyes blazing with light. The question is what I can offer him. And the answer is everything. My art, my trust, my future. I choose Park Doan of Earth. For one heartbeat, everything was still. Then chaos erupted. General Vorn drew his weapon. A plasma blade hummed with deadly energy in his four hands. This is an insult. A mockery of everything we stand for. Guards moved to stop him, but he cut them down with brutal speed. His blade sliced through armor like paper. The crowd screamed and tried to flee. If I cannot have her, Vorn roared, then no one will. He charged toward Yira, blade raised to kill. Doan stepped in front of her. He had no weapon, no armor, no training. He was a translator, a scholar, a man who had never fought anything more dangerous than a difficult grammar problem. But some things did not need training. Some things only needed love. Vorn's blade came down. Dawan caught it with his bare hands. The plasma edge burned through his flesh. Pain exploded through every nerve in his body. He could smell his own skin cooking. He could feel his bones beginning to crack, but he did not let go. You are not taking her, he gasped through the agony. Impossible. Vorn's compound eyes went wide. The pain alone should have killed you. Humans do not stop when it hurts. Doan's voice was broken and raw, but it did not waver. We do not stop when it is impossible. We do not stop when everyone tells us we should. Blood dripped from his ruined hands, sizzling on the plasma blade. That is what you never understood about us. With his burned hands still gripping the blade, he drove his forehead into Vorn's face. Thought it was not a trained attack. It was desperate and clumsy, but it worked. Vorn staggered backward, more shocked than hurt. In that moment, the palace guards finally reached him. They tackled the general to the ground, pinning his forearms. Doan collapsed. His hands were destroyed. His body was shutting down from pain and shock. The world was going dark around the edges. Why I caught him before he hit the floor. "You fool," she whispered. Tears were streaming down her blue cheeks. "You beautiful, impossible fool." "Had to," he managed to say. "Could not let him hurt you. Could not. Do not talk. Save your strength." She pressed her forehead to his, and he felt her energy flowing into him. Not healing, but keeping him alive. Holding him in the world until help could arrive. Around them, the amphitheater had gone silent again. But now the silence was different, It was respect. The entire galaxy had just watched a human catch a plasma blade with his bare hands to protect the woman he loved. A being with no special powers, no modifications, no advantages at all. Just soft skin and weak bones and a heart that refused to quit. General Vorn was dragged away, screaming about insults and mockery, but nobody was listening to him anymore. They were all looking at the human, who lay bleeding on the crystal platform. The human who had done what should have been impossible. The human who had proven that maybe, just maybe, his species was not such a joke after all. Medical teams rushed forward. Yura refused to leave Dohan's side as they worked on him. She held his ruined hand gently, not caring about the blood that stained her silver robes. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Please, stay with me." And through the pain, through the darkness creeping into his vision, Dohan smiled. "Always," he promised. Then everything went black, but his heart kept beating. Stubborn to the end, just like a human. 6 months passed before the wedding could happen. Dawan's hands took a long time to heal. The Ethon doctors were amazed that he was alive at all. The plasma blade should have killed him instantly. The pain alone should have stopped his heart. But human bodies, they discovered, were strangely stubborn about dying. "Your species makes no sense," the head doctor told him one day. "You have no natural armor, no regeneration abilities, no pain blockers in your nervous system. By every measure, you are fragile. Yet you survive things that would kill beings twice your size. We are too stubborn to know when to quit." Dohan said with a smile. The wedding was the largest gathering in galactic history. Representatives from every known civilization attended. Not because they wanted to, but because they could not afford to miss it. Something had changed in the balance of power. Nobody quite understood what, but everyone could feel it. Earth sent its entire leadership. They sat in special seats near the front, tears in their eyes, watching one of their own marry into the most powerful family in the galaxy. They kept looking at each other like they could not believe this was real. Dohan's mother had the seat of highest honor. It was a position usually held by admirals and governors. She was a small woman with hands worn rough from years of hard work. She could not stop crying. "My boy," she kept saying. "My beautiful boy." The ceremony combined human and Ethon traditions. They exchanged rings. This was a human custom that fascinated the Ethon priests. They had never seen people use small circles of metal to symbolize eternal promises. Yura kept turning her ring around on her finger, smiling at how it caught the light. They performed the Meyarid. They performed the joining of light. This was an Ethon ritual where two souls were connected forever. Their life forces would be linked until death. When the connection was made, both of them gasped. Dohan could suddenly feel Yura's emotions like they were his own. Her joy, her love, her hope. She could feel his too. They spoke their vows in both languages, Korean and High Ethon. Yura's accent was terrible when she spoke Korean, and she knew it. She laughed at herself in the middle of the ceremony, and Dohan laughed with her. The crowd did not understand what was funny, but they smiled anyway. Emperor Zeran stood before them to declare the marriage complete. His ancient face was hard to read. Respect and curiosity, and something that might have been wonder. "You know," he said quietly during a pause in the ceremony, "I have been alive for 700 years. I thought I understood how the universe worked. And now, Your Majesty? Now I am not sure I understand anything. The Emperor almost smiled. That is the most interesting feeling I have had in centuries. When it was time to face the crowd, Dohan and Yura stood together at the edge of the platform. Beings of all worlds, Dohan said. His voice carried through the great hall. Thank you for witnessing our joining. I know many of you still doubt whether a human belongs here. Whether I deserve to stand beside your princess. He paused, looking out at the sea of alien faces. Species that had been traveling among the stars, while humans were still learning to make fire. I cannot promise that I deserve it. Deserving is not the point. Love is not given because it is deserved. It is given because it is chosen. He took Yura's hand. The princess chose me. Not because I was worthy, but because I was willing. Willing to see her as a person. Willing to stand beside her without conditions. Willing to become whatever our partnership needs. That is what humans offer the galaxy, he continued. Not strength or power or ancient wisdom. We offer the willingness to try. To fail and try again. To love with everything we have, knowing our time is short. He smiled. We offer hope. Yura spoke next. My people have lived for thousands of years. We have built empires that stretch across the stars. We have created technology that seems like magic to younger species. But somewhere along the way, we forgot why we did any of it. She looked at her father, at the nobles, at the representatives of old and proud empires. We forgot that civilization is not about power. It is about connection. It is about finding meaning in each other. She turned to Dowan, her golden eyes shining with tears. This human taught me that. This impossible, stubborn, beautiful human who caught a blade of fire because he could not bear to see me hurt. The amphitheater was silent. The galaxy laughed at humans, Yura said. But perhaps the galaxy should take notes instead. The years that followed changed everything. The marriage between Yura and Dohan became a symbol. A symbol of hope and possibility. A symbol that connections mattered more than categories. Earth's status rose from galactic joke to respected partner. Human ambassadors were suddenly wanted everywhere. People valued their unusual way of seeing things. Dowan never became a warrior or general. He stayed what he had always been. A translator. A scholar. A man who believed in understanding. But now he translated between entire civilizations, not just languages. He built bridges across gaps that had seemed impossible to cross. Yura became the heir to the Ethon sovereignty. She brought her husband's way of thinking with her. The Empire's ways changed. Less conquest. More cooperation. Less taking. More sharing. The Ethon, who had ruled through force for 10,000 years, began leading by example instead. Not everyone was happy. General Vorn's followers plotted revenge from exile. Old leaders in many empires complained about weakness. There would be challenges ahead. Problems and conflicts and moments of doubt. But on the balcony of the Imperial Palace, watching sunset paint 3 moons in gold and pink, Dohan and Yura stood together. Her head rested on his shoulder. His arm wrapped around her waist. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Leaving your life on Earth? Becoming this? Dohan thought about the question carefully. His mother lived on the Ethon homeworld now. She was treated like royalty, but still insisted on cooking her own food. His old friends sent messages filled with amazement. His life had changed beyond recognition. No, he said finally, because this is just a continuation of who I always was. A translator. A bridge between worlds. I just have a bigger audience now. Yura laughed. You were supposed to say something romantic. Oh, he thought for a moment. I love you more than all the languages in the galaxy. Better. She kissed his cheek. Not much better, but better. They stood in comfortable silence as the moons rose higher and the stars came out. Billions of them. Each one home to beings with their own stories, their own struggles, their own impossible dreams. The galaxy mocked the human groom, Yura said softly. Do you think they have stopped? Dohan smiled. Probably not. Humans are still weak, still fragile, still brief. We are still everything they said we were, but we are also still here, still reaching, still hoping. He pulled her closer. That is what they do not understand about us. We do not succeed despite our weaknesses. We succeed because of them. Because we have to try harder, fight longer, love with more fire. Because we cannot afford to give up. Above them, the stars turned slowly, infinite and ancient, and completely uncaring about the small creatures, who dared to love beneath them. But the small creatures did not mind. They had each other dot, and in the end, across all the vast emptiness of space, across all the differences between species, across all the mockery and doubt and impossible odds, that was enough. Love was enough. It always had been. Park Dohan. Translator from Bazan, holder of no titles, member of the galaxy's weakest species, looked up at the stars he had dreamed of as a child. He had caught them, and they had caught him right back.